over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. My Week 5 college football power ratings have been posted over there, including my lines for all of the games that are coming up here this week. Also, this morning, I got up the opening line report, and of course, as luck would have it, shortly after I posted that, we saw some line movements in some of the games that kind of went against some of the early moves that were out there. A couple syndicates releasing here on Monday morning, getting their plays out to clients. So kind of throwing the market for a little bit of a loop, but again, try to get as much information out to you as quickly as we possibly can at the website. My NFL opening line report will come out here this afternoon. Also, I'll post my Week 5 college football situational betting tips later on today. And then as we go throughout the week here at BangTheBook.com, another set of power ratings and model picks from Danny Vorgs. We'll have all of our usual football picks as we go throughout the week. Parker Michaels getting ready for the NHL season. Should have some content for us over at the website here this week. James Mazzola will be back this week for a preview of the Safeway Open on the PGA Tour. NASCAR playoffs still going on. I'm sure there's another UFC event this week, so we'll cover all of it for you over at the website. Oh, we still have WNBA playoffs. Good tennis preview from Big Ted Watto for the two events over in Asia this week. So, yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on over at the website. Make sure that you check it all out. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. All right, like I said, I'll welcome Kyle to the program here in probably about 10 to 15 minutes or so. But in the meantime, let's take a look at what's happening in the Major League Baseball world. And, I think it's kind of interesting because it used to be one of those scenarios where you could blindly fade teams that locked up the division, locked up a playoff berth in their next game because they party. And the party goes well into the night because, hey, when you play 162 games over 188 days or 186 days, whatever it is, it's a long, grueling season, and it's definitely worth celebrating those achievements of getting to the playoffs. Now, it didn't work out with Atlanta over the weekend here where they did wind up clinching the division. Then they still came out, beat San Francisco handily the next day before losing in the following game. But there is a situation tonight that I would keep a close eye on here. It's the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, it is obviously critically important to win your division as opposed to go into that one-game playoff for the wild card because anything can happen in one game. At least in a 5-game series, you set yourself up a little bit better. You give yourself more of a chance by being guaranteed at least 3 games as opposed to just playing the one. So the Cardinals do still have a lot on the line here. However, when you look at what transpired over the weekend for the Cardinals to lock up a playoff berth, they have a 3-game lead on the Brewers. The Brewers are not in action tonight. So, for the Cardinals here, a 4-game sweep of the Cubs, all of them 1-run victories, rallying in yesterday's game to clinch a playoff berth. I think they're a fade team tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, this is a line that has moved about 25 cents from where it opened, and I get it. The Cardinals are playing great baseball right now, but still, a lot of times you clinch a playoff spot, something like that, you sit guys, certainly if you clinch the division, you sit guys in that following game. Maybe the Cardinals don't have that luxury, but still, long trip from Chicago to go out to Arizona. Again, just clinched a playoff berth. Kind of an emotional spot here for Paul Goldschmidt, who, had a lot of success with the Diamondbacks. The team didn't have as much while he was there, but, gets to the playoffs. Now he goes out to Arizona for another series. I think it's a tough spot for the Cardinals tonight. And really, the Cardinals situationally have been a fade coming out of series against the Cubs. I don't have the actual number in front of me. I used to have it, but they were very, very poor. It was somewhere around, 4-12 or 4-13 in their last 16 or 17 games coming out of a series against the Cubs coming into the 2019 season. So not exactly sure how they've done with that angle here so far this year. But again, coming off of the 4-game sweep, you get to trash the visitors' clubhouse at Wrigley, partying it up, popping champagne, popping bottles, everything that goes on when you clinch a playoff spot. I think this is a really tough spot for St. Louis tonight. So just to throw out a baseball play for you here that I kind of had on my radar, I think Arizona in that plus 130, plus 135 range, a decent look here for tonight. But that is something you want to keep in mind here as these teams lock up division crowns, as these teams go on and secure playoff berths, especially if you get that first wild card where you have home field advantage. You don't have to play that Monday tiebreaker game. Oakland A's look, hoping to do that here this week, as the Indians and the Rays, tied for the second wild card spot, would have to play Monday in Tampa if that's the way that things shake out. But this is an angle, and it's not as obvious, it's not as cut and dry as it used to be, because you have different considerations here. For example, Houston, a half game ahead of the Yankees in the loss column when it comes to home field advantage for the duration of their stay in the playoffs. The Dodgers, they already have, they're 4.5 games up on the Braves. They should be in decent shape there. They don't really have much to worry about. They've had the division locked up since, the middle of May. So, again, this angle isn't as cut and dry as it used to be, because these teams, do sort of grasp the importance of home field advantage a little bit more and stuff like that. And certainly, avoiding the wild card play-in game. Because keep in mind, up until, 2013, you just had one wild card team in each league. So those teams knew they were in the playoffs, knew they were going to the division series, so they would party it up. Now you've got that one-game winner-take-all playoff, very stressful situation. But still something you want to keep in mind here, for example, with the Minnesota Twins. For the Minnesota Twins here, it's been a magical season, in particular on the offensive side. And they've overcome some injuries throughout the year, but this has been the Indians' division for the last 3 years. And for the Twins to get back to the mountaintop, as they're going to do here this year, I think they're going to party it up for sure. Now, they've got a chance at 100 wins. They've got 6 games left to go. They need to go at least 4-2 for 100 wins. But still, you lock up the division. I think that's something that should be celebrated, something that is a very impressive achievement. And also, they're probably going to do it they're going to do it on the road here, since all their home games have been exhausted. So that's always fun too. You don't have to go home to your family. You don't have to have your family in the celebration. It's just you and the boys. And that means, going crazy in the clubhouse. That means maybe going out after the game, something like that. So whenever the Twins do clinch the division here, I would look to fade them in their next game, because they can't track down the Astros or the Yankees, and they would have secured this division crown, and just kind of be waiting and wondering to see who they wind up playing. So that is one that does stand out to me, because unlike the teams in the National League, they don't have any additional considerations. They just win the division, and that's that, and they either go on the road to Houston or New York. So for the Twins, I would fade them coming off of that division clinching game. So something for you to keep in mind here as we go throughout the week. The Twins are not in action tonight either. Only 5 games tonight in the big leagues, but the Twins not one of those 10 teams playing. So again, as this probably happens, Thursday, Friday, something like that, I would look to fade the Twins in their next game, because nobody's going to play in that next game. And again, they don't have any other considerations when it comes to home field advantage or anything like that. Now, as far as just in general here for the last week of the season, we don't have a ton of betting angles out there. Normally you have some teams that are kind of hovering around 500. They'd like to get to that point. They'd like to finish with a winning record as opposed to a losing record. There really aren't any teams that are kind of hanging on the cusp of that. Boston's already won 81 games. They've been playing a little bit better here of late. You've got a lot of really bad teams this year. The Mets have already won 81. The Marlins have won, or the Phillies, have won 79. They appear to be in pretty good shape to at least have a winning record. The Cubs are just free-falling right now. That's maybe a fade team to continue here as we go forward, because they're not going to be a playoff team now. They're 4 games behind the Brewers. They're more than that behind the Nationals. So, they're only 4 games behind the Nationals here. So still, it's going to be one of those situations where it's going to be very hard for the Cubs to make it into the playoffs. And that's a major disappointment. Losing 6 in a row, losing the way that they did to St. Louis over the weekend, that's probably a continued fade situation, especially with a team that, for whatever reason, 51-30 at home, 31-44 on the road. Rest of their remaining games here going to be played on the road. So, again, look for these situations here where you think teams may just kind of mail it in. I think the Giants will be a good bet this week, because the Giants, look, nobody wants to play spoiler. Nobody's all that interested in doing that. at least not for the most part. And they don't have to worry about it anyway. They start a series here with Colorado coming up tomorrow. They finish up with the Dodgers, who are going to have nothing to play for. But the Giants want to send Bruce Bochy off on as high of a note as possible. The Dodgers have already won 100 games. As long as they take care of business here this week and keep themselves in prime position for home field throughout the National League playoffs, that's their only worry. So I think the Giants this week could be a play-on team. I don't think they go 6-0 and finish 500 or anything like that. But with Bruce Bochy leaving, that they're going to give a maximum effort here in the last week of the season, especially because last year in September they completely quit. I think they went, 5-24, something like that. They're going to play this thing out for Bruce Bochy. So I think the Giants are a good play-on team here this week. You look at some other teams here. I mean, like the Pirates dropping 9 in a row. They're a mess. I would expect them to continue to be a mess here. Just look for some of these situations. Look for some of these spots. I think the Angels are another fade team here. They've already lost 7 of 10 anyway. But when you think about what this team has gone through this season with the death of Tyler Skaggs and, the combined no-hitter shortly after his passing, and then just being in that playoff mix for a little while and then just completely falling apart in the second half, I would expect that that's a team that just emotionally doesn't have much more to give. They just don't really have a whole lot left in the tank. As we look around, no other teams at risk of losing 100 games or something like that. That's a real disappointing thing. So not a whole lot of motivational angles, not a whole lot of stuff I think you can really focus on this week. But again, fading the Twins after they clinch the division, that's an angle I'll be looking at. And then also looking to continue fading some of these teams that are just in free fall mode. And again, backing the Giants, who I think will give a lot of respect to Bruce Bochy for his tenure there in the Bay Area. So we transition over to the NFL for a few minutes here and take a look at game 489-490, Chicago and Washington tonight. Bears up to a 5.5-point favorite out there in the marketplace. It's about where this number opened. It did come all the way down to as low as 3.5 very early in the week last week. Has since been bet back up into the 5.5 range. Total for this game of 42. And, my initial thought was to like Washington. My initial thought was, okay, the Bears just have not played well. Trubisky's just not the guy. This offense doesn't look particularly strong. You've got the home dog on Monday night. Certainly an angle that a lot of people like to look at. But then the more I thought about it, look, Green Bay's defense is much better than any of us expected. So that week 1 performance, you don't want to, just chalk it up and kind of throw that game away. But I think that week 1 performance just wasn't as bad as we all made it out to be with Chicago. And then you follow that up and Chicago gets Denver. And for all the offensive problems that Denver has, still a lot of talented personnel on defense. And you try to do things. When a pass rush gets there, it obviously helps. But you also have to game plan for that pass rush. And you alter some of your plans from time to time. Quarterbacks just don't feel comfortable. They're bailing out. How many times did we see that last night with Baker Mayfield and the Browns where the pass rush kept getting there, and even when it didn't get there, Baker didn't step up in the pocket. He's trying to escape. He's going to the right, throwing on the run. So that pass rush, whether it gets there or not, has a significant impact. And I think that had a big impact on the Chicago Bears last week. Washington does not have the same pass rush. They don't really play a lot of tight man coverage type stuff. Maybe they change it up here in this game and try to do a little bit more of that. But I think this is a good spot for the Chicago offense. I think the Bears offense should look pretty good here in this game. I think Trubisky could have a pretty big day. So with this line coming back up into the 5.5 range, I do understand it. I do think it's probably the right move. It was obviously a better play at 3.5 or 4 earlier on in the week. Would lean Chicago in this spot. They are a team that I did consider a little bit for the contest, the Super Contest, and the Circa Million. I believe the number is 4 for that. So you're getting a little bit of line value for those that still have that game live tonight. But, that's the thing here is, how good does Trubisky look? Does this Bears defense do what it's supposed to do against Washington? I would certainly expect that to be the case. So, again, tonight in the Monday night game, would lean Chicago minus the 5.5, possibly lean the over a little bit here as well, just because I do think that, Trubisky, with a better matchup here and also with some questions for the Chicago offense to answer, there are some points on the Chicago side We'll see if Washington's able to keep pace themselves. But, again, lean Chicago for me. Nothing all that strong on this game tonight.